Okay, so here are some examples of how, now that you know how it works, let's show some use cases. So this is a simple use case, and actually a very ugly use case, but it's the general idea. So here, I have a bunch of links, right? So here it says A before, and I say make the color white, make the background color black, increase the font size a bit, give it some padding, display it inline block, because inline block, then I can give it width, and then I give it margin right, and because it's inline block, I can also text align it within that block. Notice that there's the only required attribute is missing from this. And the reason that I don't put it in here like a default value is because if it doesn't have content, I don't want it to have a black box in front of it. If I have a link with that doesn't match any of my predefined links, I don't want to have a black box, an empty black box. That would look tacky. So here, in my link, anyone want to tell me what that reads? Now that you guys know these?
Starts with mail to.
Exactly. Any link that starts with mail to, before it, put this character, which happens to be this little mail icon. This one starts with telephone. And anyone remember what this means?
Okay.
Ends with, right. So ends with VCS. So that's usually a calendar thing. I couldn't find a calendar when I was doing this because I just put a clock. I'm sure there's a calendar icon, I just didn't know what it was. So the content will only appear if there is content to appear, right? And this way, you guys know that this is a mail to link. If this had just said email me, I wouldn't have known that it opens up that icon is a visual indicator that might be an email link. It's progressive enhancement. Just because someone in that has IE7 doesn't get that, doesn't mean you can't include it, right? Because it adds content. It's not like the page is inaccessible without it. So here, what does this say, anyone? Any element that begins with HTTP on hover only, make it position relative. And why do I make it on position relative? Because my hovering thing is position absolute, and if it was not relative, it would be right up here. It would appear here. So here, nothing happens because this is a relative link, and this is an external link, right? So the styling for that says the content should be the href attribute. The position should be absolute, 1em from the top. And the reason that it's 1em from the top is so that it's underneath it, right there. And notice that I'm hovering over this, and it's still open, because I'm still hovering over the element, because the generated content is inside that element, right? Left 0, that's why it's aligned on the left. Background color is black, foreground color is, or text color rather is white. There's a teeny bit of padding, and line height is 1. Because it's positioned absolutely, I can give it line height. It's no longer an inline element, it's a block level element, right? When something's positioned absolutely, by default it's block. So the question is, why did I wait till hover to make it position relative? The reason is, when you make something position relative, it basically, and you try to put something over it, it will shine right through. So if all of my links, I'm looking for a page with links. Well, these are not going to hover over each other. But if generated content was right up here, and this was position relative, the tooltip would come right through, because the z-index has its own, I forget the word. So that's why you put relative just on hover, so it doesn't shine through. This is one of those things, I'm telling it to you now, it might not make sense. When you hit this bug, I just saved you like 5 hours of time. So just remember, something relative is bad. So that's why you do it on hover. Okay, so here, more use cases. Here, I have a block quote with 2 paragraphs in it. And I say block quote before and after. I want it to, the generated content to be 2 ems, brownish, Line height is 0, vertical align middle. And then the first child, the P that is the first child only, before, put the opening quotes and move it 40 pixels over to the left. And right after the last one, and this is going to be in line, right? Because I didn't say display block. So it's just there in line, but I'm moving it over 40 pixels because it's because if I put anything else after that, then it's basically it's a font sizing thing. So I moved it. I want it on the outside, and that's why I put this -40 right there. Simple use case. Another simple use case of generated content is triangles. Triangles are awesome, and they're kind of hard to do, right? You think? They're really, really easy to do. There's nothing simpler than creating a triangle. And I'm going to go create a triangle in one of our pages right here. Before, there's not going to be any content. And this is totally going to break because I'm live doing a demonstration, so it's not going to work. But width is 0, height is 0, position is absolute, border is 20 pixels, solid red. Okay, there I have 20 pixels by 20 pixels by 20 pixels by 20 pixels, right? And then if I do border, so if I do transparent, you saw where the room it takes up, right? So instead I'm going to do transparent, and you don't see anything because it's transparent. Border, left, color, red. And that's a triangle. If it was bottom, you're like, sweet, that was easy. Okay, so triangles are so ridiculously easy. And the other thing I can do is I can do like 20 pixels, 10 pixels. If I can also do this, border width, 20 pixels, 5 pixels. And that way you can start getting really weird shapes. And I'm just going to move this over to 40, so it's or 100. And 50 right there. And then I'm going to move this down to 20. So you see how I'm making it narrower? Like that? But if I do border left, it's going to be really wide. Right? So you can make all sorts of different triangles. That's how you make triangles in CSS. You use generated content. So triangles are kind of helpful for quotes. So this is a quote, as you can tell because it says quote. And I just put a border radius of 10 pixels. And then afterwards, I positioned absolutely height 0, width 0. So why did I do height and width of 0? So that it has a point. Because of the box model, right? If it actually had height and width, you'd have a trapezoid. Border 20 pixel solid transparent, border top color red. And that's why it's this way. If it was bottom, it would go that way. And then I moved it down to the bottom. So off from the bottom, it's 39 pixels, which is weird. I don't know how I came up with, and 20 pixels from the left. I have to try to remember why I came up with 39 pixels. So let's cover a few more, and then we'll do a little exercise. So this is another one, a thought bubble. Border radius 50%, and we'll cover border radius later, but basically makes a circle or an oval. And then I make two little bubbles after that. So I put a before and an after. I declared both of them to appear the exact same way, right? Content is empty, position is absolute, and a height and width. Oh, I also I put thought before and after. So all three of them look the exact same with a 5 pixel blue border, radius of 50%, background color white, and position is relative. Because this has to be relative so that the generated content is positioned absolutely relative to that parent, right? You guys know this, right? If you position something absolutely, it is positioned relative to its ancestor that is positioned. So it won't be positioned relative to its parent if the parent is static. It'll be the grandparent if the grandparent is relative. And if nothing is declared on any of its ancestors all the way to, it'll be relative to the body. So that's why generally when you see something positioned absolutely, the parent is always positioned relatively. So that the child is positioned absolutely relative to its parent. Does that make sense? Did you guys know that? People are like, I have no clue still what you're talking about. Do you guys understand the position pretty much? If not, we'll talk about it as a side thing during lunch or something. Okay. So, before, after, okay, so here we are. All of them are white with blue borders and round. The two after, the before and after, I put empty content, positioned absolute, and this is the height for the big one, and this is the height and positioning for the small one. I just moved it lower and made it smaller. Can you use this now? If someone with IE7 uses this, it will say this is a thought bubble, and it will have a 5-pixel blue radius. It will not be round, but the content will be there, and it will appear there, and it will take up the same amount of space, and it won't have the 2 dots below it. And it's WTFC, which is WTF cares. And I'll try not to swear on camera.